and welcome. Welcome everybody to our, what month are we in? July monthly member meeting. I can't believe it's July. This is insane. How did the year go by so quickly? We're halfway through the year. It's so nice to see some familiar faces, some new faces. Welcome you all to this call. You know, when we started the NADP over 7 years ago, our goal was exactly this. Our goal was to be able to unite all of you amazing legal, financial, mental health, residential professionals for certain purposes. And the main purpose was this: educating you guys on all areas of the divorce process so that you could properly serve your divorcing clients. Over so many years, we found that professionals know their lane. They know their lane really well in their profession, and they have their heart in the right place. They want to make an impact, but they just didn't have the information that they needed to be able to guide their clients properly, right? They knew in their own lane, but not outside of their lane. So not only the first step of getting educated is crucial, but then also having your community, your resources to be able to provide for your clients. That's a second really important part to it all. If you are not connected with the right people to serve your clients, you're doing them disjustice and also yourself, right? And this is the problem that I know I had when I was coaching prior to the NADP, and always wanting to be able to bring people to my client and help them in areas that I couldn't, and just not having people that I trusted. Because when I would go to my local networking groups, and they were great, they were all wonderful, I just wasn't about to trust somebody just because they gave me their business card and said, oh yeah, I'm a so-and-so and can help your clients. That wasn't good enough to me to present to my divorcing clients, knowing that they're going through one of the biggest challenges of their life, and the process that is going to ultimately derail everything in their lives, including for their children as well. So I thank you for being part of our journey. We are so thrilled that we are still continuing our mission. Nicole and I always have at top of mind, how can we make an impact on the divorce space? And for those of you who are with us from the beginning, you know exactly what that impact has been all throughout the country, which is amazing. I love seeing how different, I see people that started 7 years ago and now progress in their practice. Either like 7 years ago, they wanted to start working more with divorcing clients, and now I see them so advanced. Like I just talked about this with my CDS graduates, and seeing them on podcasts everywhere, and seeing them be industry leaders for divorcing clients, which I absolutely love. So thank you for being part. For those of you who I don't know, I welcome you. If this is your first meeting as a member, I welcome you to the NADP. Glad you are here. You have wonderful resources, and two of those are on our call today presenting that are just incredible. I'm going to let Nicole introduce after Jackie and Kristen. They've been with us for many years. They are such leaders within the collaborative movement. And that's a perfect example. You know, the presentation today is about collaborative practice. And I noticed, which was amazing to me, absolutely astonishing to me, how many professionals out there are helping divorcing clients and don't even know the different ways their clients can get divorced. Whether they've already started the process, whether they're right at the beginning and they don't even know where to turn. If someone does not know that there is a process called the collaborative process, it's horrible that you don't know this. If you're helping divorcing clients, you must understand the different ways. And if you also don't know what stage your present client is in, how could you possibly provide your service? Because you will not know if they are able to sell their home, if they're able to withdraw money from their account, if they're able to make big purchases, if they're even able to make big decisions, if you don't understand what process they're on and what stage they are at during that process. So this is exactly why we're bringing this information to you. I normally start off, I got a little bit, off course. I got really passionate this morning, but I usually start off with some housekeeping items. And one of those is, please, in your account and on your thumbnail, change your name so that it says either guest first before your name or member. because as a member benefit at the end of this presentation and the meeting today, then we break you out into different groups so that with other members, so that you can network and you can create those resources, because it's really important today more than ever to have connections nationwide. We continuously are asked all across the country from different members, and they post on our Facebook page, do you know a lawyer here in this state? Or do you know a mental health professional here? Or do you know a realtor here, in this state? Because people are moving, they're moving all over the place, and you need to be able to be connected everywhere. So this is a great opportunity for you to do so. So make sure that you put that so we'll know exactly who. And the guests that are here, welcome, and you get to stay with me here in the main room so that I can get to know you. So just make sure you have that on there. And what else? If you have any questions, just put it in the chat box. We have Cybele on in the background, and she's there to answer any questions you might have. So please you can put that there, and also put your name and information in the chat box, because you can save the chat. It will automatically save on your computer. And if there's someone that you're specifically looking to connect with, they may be on this call. So just put your name, put your profession, where you are in the chat room. And I think I've said about enough. So I'm going to transfer over to Nicole and enjoy today's presentation, everybody.
Thanks, Liz. Hi, everyone. I'm going to try to keep my announcements brief because I know our speakers have a lot to get to. On Thursday, I hope you all know that every month we do a marketing webinar. This Thursday, we have a wonderful speaker about public speaking, talking about the importance, how to use it to grow your business. There's so many platforms today to be speakers on. She's fabulous. We've had her on before. And for our August MMM, we decided to make it a social. No ed talk for August. Everybody's, doing different things and traveling, but hopefully they will join for this. We'll make it fun. We're going to have games and prizes and some networking so that you can get to know your fellow NADP members, which people are always asking us to do. So please join us for that. And there'll be an email going out, I think today or tomorrow, about that. With no further ado, let me introduce our amazing speakers. So we've got Kristen Goss, who is a native of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and the managing partner of KWG Family Legal and Mediation Services, which was founded in 2016 with offices in Fort Lauderdale and Boca. Kristen is a collaboratively trained marital and family law attorney who is passionate about advocating for clients' legal interests outside of court in order to resolve their divorce, paternity action, modification, and any other family law-related matter in a private, healthy, empowering, and cost-effective manner. Ms. Goss has been married since April 2008 and has 3 beautiful daughters. An interesting fact about Kristen is that she obtained her bachelor's degree in conflict resolution, communication studies from the University of Miami in Coral Gables, Florida. And prior to practicing law, she was a licensed financial advisor. Her communication training and finance experience enables her to provide greater insight when representing her clients. Jackie Caputo, we're so excited to have you on as well, was admitted to the New York State Bar in January of 2004 and has concentrated on matrimonial law throughout the majority of her career. Jackie is known as a skilled litigator, but also a very highly regarded and excellent mediator. Her interest in marital law comes from her deep-seated desire to help families by minimizing much of the emotional trauma that often accompanies a litigated divorce. It is her unwavering belief that the ending of a marriage should be an opportunity for each of the parties to grow, to become happier and healthier. Hope that happens in all cases. When there are children and when appropriate, she believes divorce should be treated as reorganization of a family rather than an opportunity to exact vengeance on one another or to right the wrongs of the past. To that end, Jackie focuses her practice on mediation and collaborative law, recognizing that these methods can often help restore peace to families and provide a clear path for the future. Jackie graduated from Cornell University and continues to be involved as a volunteer for their alumni associations. Admissions. She's a member of the New York State Bar and both the Nassau County and Suffolk Bar Associations and serves on their matrimonial law committees. She is a founding member and was the assistant director of the NADP Long Island chapter. Ooh, that's a lot. Okay, we want to welcome both of you, and I'll let you take it away. I know you have a lot of information to give us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, Kristen, for being here with me today. Kristen and I met at a conference in Orlando a while back, and I think I can speak for both of us that we instantly felt like we knew each other forever, right? I mean, like
Absolutely.
within a second, we were fast friends, and I think it's because we're both very passionate about what we do, and we really believe in this stuff. So I hope we'll be able to convey that today, right, Kristen?
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you guys so much for this opportunity. Looking forward to speaking with you, Jackie.
So I'm going to try to go ahead and share my screen. Bear with me, and let's see if this works. Did that work or no?
No.
Did that work? Did that work?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, you know, when Nicole asked us to do this presentation, we were told that we had to come up with a catchy title. And so what I came up with is that, you know, we're going to try to understand collaborative divorce today and debunk some common misconceptions. And then there I have, it's not all rainbows and butterflies. And if you have one takeaway from today, that is it. That is actually stolen from a lyric in a Maroon 5 song. I believe it's in She Will Be Loved, where it says, it's not always rainbows and butterflies, it's compromise that moves us along. And every time I hear that song, I think to myself, wow, that's what I do. That's what I've, you know, made my life's work, is to help people find that sweet spot of compromise so that they can move on, so they can move along. And, you know, I think in coming up with you know, my thoughts for today, you know, a lot of people, and certainly anyone who practices in the divorce space, and it's not just attorneys, it's, you know, all disciplines. Everyone kind of knows what mediation is. Everyone understands what that is. It's a household name. Very, very few people understand what collaborative divorce is. You know, and like Liz was saying, even those of us that this is our career, this is our life's work, I find that not many people understand what collaborative is. And even if they think that they do, there are some very common misconceptions. And so the first one, I think, is this idea that collaborative is only appropriate when a family is in good shape and gets along and everything's nice and sweet, and there's this kumbaya element to it. And I think what Kristen and I can share with you guys today from our experience in practicing in this area on a regular basis is that that is actually not a prerequisite for a good collaborative case. And I think what our experience has taught us is that sometimes it's actually those cases that are high conflict or have some really difficult circumstances to them that actually lend themselves really, really well to the collaborative process, because there's enough meat there for us to sink into and to really work with. I mean, would you agree with that, Kristen?
Absolutely. And I would just say, alongside this whole kumbaya aspect of things, is this myth that the law doesn't apply in collaborative cases, you know. And as lawyers, as you know, Jackie, we are bound by our state bar ethics rules as well as the ethics rules for the International Collaborative Academy and our local state practices as well. And in regards to the myth of it being, you know, nice and sweet and sailing and everybody getting along, I would have to say that in comparison to cases that I've litigated and my collaborative cases on a whole have been a lot of different issues that come up. For example, alcoholism or safety concerns with the children. I had a couple that were living in separate counties and were separated for years and had 3 small children, all under the ages of 5, and we having to deal with issues of alcoholism and safety concerns. So there are a lot of things that go into making a collaborative case, and it is not roses and butterflies. It is hard work, but the difference, I would say, are the individuals not agreeing, but being able to compromise, as you indicated earlier, Jackie, and understanding enough that despite our differences, we are going to do this for ourselves, even if it's not for the other person. I'm going to do this for myself because at the end of the day, I'm going to come out of it stronger and empowered for myself. And then if kids are involved, for the children.
Yep, exactly. I just did a consult yesterday where that was the wife's epiphany while we were on the phone. She actually started to cry and she said, I feel so lucky to have met you. And because I really feel that this is what's going to save my family, and things will be different, but we are going to reorganize and we're going to be okay when this is over. I really believe that. And I find a lot of the clients who engage in this method find that that is true. They find that that is true. So what we have here on this slide is just, a list of different circumstances that may come up with a case that, it's not to say that it is always appropriate for collaborative if these are the circumstances, but it may be. And so what Kristen and I are hoping to accomplish with everyone who's viewing today is just to perhaps think differently when a case first comes into your office, and to consider that, maybe the collaborative process might work under these circumstances where initially your gut might be that it would never go this path because it's not amicable and it's not friendly. And so the list that we have here of some circumstances would be in the case of infidelity, alcoholism, domestic abuse, high conflict personalities, mental health issues, children with special needs, high net worth cases, where the parties are business owners, complex financial issues, same-sex couples, and even in situations where it's just a separation that the parties are seeking and not necessarily a divorce. So for those of you, we probably have all different, people of all different experience on this Zoom today. So Kristen, it's probably a good idea for us to at least run through real quick so that people understand how the collaborative practice actually works, in a nutshell.
Absolutely. So in the state of Florida, there is a law that is passed that I'm sure some people are aware of. So it has been legal since 2017. The then Governor Rick Scott established the Collaborative Process Act, and so that's what we abide by. There's a statute, et cetera, in the state of Florida. And in regards to what constitutes a collaborative case, all that's needed are 2 attorneys. They don't even have to be collaboratively trained, but preferably collaboratively trained, 2 attorneys, one representing each spouse. So one for one spouse, one for the other spouse. And you enter into a participation agreement that outlines the do's and don'ts of how the process is going to go. For example, we're not going to name bash each other. We're going to be open and honest and transparent about our finances, etc. And then there is what you call a disqualification provision that's included in the participation agreement that says, in the event the process breaks down for whatever reason, that the spouses have to fire their attorneys that are representing them in the process and take the case to court. I would have to say, in my years of practicing collaboratively, I have not had one case that has broken down. Not to say it happens, but in my experience, it has not happened. And I believe it's because everybody is committed to the process. The professionals, the participants involved, they are,
Ladies,
regardless of the
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Can you just start, the font is very small. We just need you to start the slideshow. It'll enlarge in it.
Yeah, if you do it as a slideshow, it should enlarge the screen so people can actually read
In the
it.
middle.
Okay.
Slideshow.
In the middle. Okay, wait.
In your PowerPoint. So in the actual PowerPoint,
Mhm.
if you just do slideshow on top,
Yeah.
let's see, and go ahead from the begin,
No, you don't
from
want
the slide, from current
from
slide.
current slide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
Did
you
that
click
work?
on that, yeah.
Yes,
there you
much
go.
better.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Continue.
No worries. So that's it in a nutshell as to what qualifies for a collaborative case, but there's so much more involved. And I will turn it over to you, Jackie,
Yeah.
at that point.
So I just want to add also, I mean, I've had the same experience as Kristen. I've been doing this for many years now, and I have never had a case fall apart, you know, and turn over to a contested litigation. And I can tell you that on a consultation, that is something that the prospective clients are always concerned about. And I always get that question. Well, I don't know if this is right for me because I wouldn't want to have to start all over again. And the irony in that is that that is very often exactly what keeps them in the process. I just had a case a few months ago where we were very close to having it all fall apart. And that was precisely what kept it going. Was the fact that they had, you know, invested a considerable amount of time and money in this process already, and we're so very close to being done. And that helped the parties realize that, you know, I actually said to my client, if you walk out of here today, you'll be walking out into that parking lot and starting from scratch, starting from, you know, zero, and you'll be lost. Whereas if you can just get past this one issue, we would be on our way to just finalizing this. And so that participation agreement actually is what kind of keeps it going in some instances. You know, a very important aspect is that this is a team approach in a collaborative case. True textbook collaborative will have a full team of 2 collaborative attorneys. So each party is represented, you know, by their own attorney who can advocate for them, who could assist them in understanding what the law is, and who can work with them individually. The tone definitely is different than when we're in a contested litigation. You know, there is a general feeling of we are going to work on this together. We're going to just talk about the issues that we have to get through, and we're going to you know, really brainstorm and be creative about what solutions we may have. And so to assist us with that, we may bring on a financial specialist, a financial neutral, that is, someone to work with both parties to help them gather the financial data and then figure out the smartest way to divide their assets, to handle their debts, to budget moving forward. And I tell my clients all the time, I'm an attorney, but I don't have the expertise that a financial advisor or an accountant or a CPA may have. And so it's very helpful to bring someone onto the team who can help us think of possibilities that we never would have come up with on our own. And then the last member of the team would be what we call the family specialist, or Kristen, I know in some other states, they refer to it as a facilitator or an administrator. So it's someone with a mental health background who is there not to provide therapy to the parties or to the attorneys, but to assist with communication, to help the parties stay focused on the task at hand, which is to reach a settlement that is tailor-made for their family, not to rehash the past, not to get stuck in feelings and emotions and anger that could so very often impede the process, but to help us stay on course with respectful and effective communication. That person also can be very paramount in assisting with devising a parenting time plan, in helping with how the parties will talk to their children about their divorce. So that could be very, very critical. And in some cases, we even have a child specialist, someone there to speak directly to the children and to be their voice in the collaborative process. So that's an overview of the team. I hope you guys can see this slide. This is something that I actually provide to my clients at the start. to help them understand how the process is going to go. And Kristen pretty much went through all of that. Kristen, do you have anything to add?
I was just going to say there are also allied professionals that we call them, that may not be neutral facilitators or neutral financials that also can come on board per diem or whenever it's necessary. For example, estate planning attorneys or realtors, mortgage brokers, to really have a more holistic approach to resolving the interests of the family. We're not focused on the positions, but how are we going to resolve the problem and be able to move forward in a holistic way.
Right, definitely. All right, guys, this next slide we have to say is courtesy of the IACP, which is the International Academy of Collaborative Professionals. And I added this to the materials because I just thought this was such a great comprehensive overview of understanding the differences between collaborative and your classic traditional litigation. And if you really take the time to read all of this, you'll see there are just so many benefits. And this really, I think, outlines it really, really well. And the fact that it's coming from the IACP should be an indication that the collaborative process is something that is worldwide. You know, some parts of the world and some parts of our country are doing it better than others. I mean, Kristen, I've got to hand it to you, getting to know you and some of the other professionals that I have from Florida. I think you guys are doing it the best I've seen in the United States, at least. But, you know, there are other countries where it is popular to the point where it is almost the standard of how they are resolving their divorces. And I think there's a lot to be learned from that. The IACP actually was just nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize,
Yes.
which is just mind-blowing. But, you know, that is really saying something about the value of this process, that it could be considered at that level. It's really incredible.
I wanted to throw in a shameless plug.
Is Kristen frozen?
Fourth annual conference coming through 22nd, I believe, in Toronto, Canada. So you can find more information on that by going to their website.
And I will be there. I will be speaking at the conference this year again.
Oh,
Yes, and Toronto's my hometown, so I invite everybody to come.
oh, that's fantastic. That's
Yes,
great,
yes.
Liz. I didn't know that. That's great.
Yeah, looking forward. I'll be speaking with Susan Guthrie, so we're looking forward to
Love Susan.
Yes.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right, so maybe Kristen and I can just share some examples with you guys now of, you know, some of the, you know, more challenging cases or cases that really at the end of it proved to be such a good fit for the collaborative process. And, you know, like I said, it's sometimes very often the high conflict cases that are best for the collaborative process, because there's a lot there to work with, and these families really do need a lot of assistance and a lot of support. I could just share with you guys a case that I have recently wrapped up. The parties were in absolute crisis, and I just think in any other way it would have just been so much worse, and we were able to get them to a settlement. And what was happening for this family was that the husband was polyamorous, although this is a realization that he came to while in his marriage, and his wife was not, and not open to a lifestyle like that. And so that was the cause for their demise. And he actually moved his girlfriend here to New York from another state with her 2 children, and she was pregnant with his child. And so the conflict that created, and it even was a conflict in a sense for my client, feeling as though not only was his wife judging him and upset with him, but even though I wasn't doing anything I thought to make him feel this way, he was feeling judged even by me. And he was highly, highly defensive. And I was having trouble communicating with him. And I was having trouble bringing these parties together to discuss anything substantive and anything other than the fact that he was starting a new life before he was even divorced and moving his 2 children in with this brand new family and all of the emotion that it was causing for his wife. And the family specialist that we had on this case did such a fantastic job in helping them communicate and helping all of us to communicate and to move past this very, very difficult drama that was unfolding. And we have been able to reach a settlement, which is just remarkable. It's incredible. I mean, Kristen, have you dealt with any high conflict families? I'm sure you have.
Yes, absolutely. All the time. Different, like, I think one of the main things that sticks out are different parenting styles, but it's a thin line because it's one thing to have different parenting styles, and then it's another when the children's safety is at stake. And so I've had several cases where there were safety concerns involving the kids, whether it was medical, domestic violence involved, where the children are observing that. And so having to navigate around that, blended family issues, and being able to really have the facilitator keep everyone in line, and having the child specialist that did a wonderful job with bringing the voice of the children to the process and allowing everyone involved to understand from the child's perspective or the children's perspective how they felt. And I think that really is what helped the process move forward in a positive direction.
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes that the parties just need that moment to express how it is that they're feeling. I recently had a case where, again, there was infidelity. I was representing the wife. We were at a settlement conference in my conference room, and she just absolutely exploded and was out of control to the point where one of the suites down the hallway almost called the police because they didn't know what was happening in our office. And she went out into the hallway with the family specialist, and they were out there for almost an hour. And she came back in collected, apologized to everyone at the table, and we were able to continue on and make such tremendous progress that day. And I always think back to that to say, what would have happened if that had happened in a courtroom? There is no way that we would have been able to salvage it, to bring it back to this calm, peaceful state where we were able to actually make some headway. So it really can be critical to have that person there on the team to jump in those high pressure situations.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Also works really, really well in complex financial situations, because like I said earlier, to have that financial neutral there as part of the team can be so helpful and can, bring us to solutions that we never, ever, ever would have come up with on our own. In one instance, I had a case where it was not necessarily so high net worth. In fact, that couple had a fair amount of debt. And for them, one of the great aspects about collaborative is when we start the process, we start by talking about what their goals are, and they have a chance to express that to the full team. And so for this couple, their goal was that no matter what, they wanted to be able to preserve the marital residence. They did not want their children at 10 and 8 years old to have to move. And at one point, the couple were both crying because they did not know how they could possibly afford to stay in the house and also have a residence for dad that would be suitable to have parenting time with the kids. And we were able to work with that financial neutral to come up with some amazing ideas of how they could how they could tap into their retirement assets in a way to help them pay down the marital debt, thereby freeing up room in their monthly budget. And they were able to stay in the marital residence and have a suitable place for dad to move to and have parenting time with the kids. And they were just so grateful. And it was fantastic. And I never would have come up with that solution on my own, ever.
Mhm. Clever, creative.
Yeah.
That's what I love about the process. When you say high net worth, I think of a case where you have a couple that have been business owners. How is that going to play out? Having an expert to value the business, what is it even worth? And bringing in additional insight from that perspective, or the tax implications that come along with all of that as well. It's something that I think in court or litigated cases, some things may be overseen, or oversight, not necessarily intentional, but because we are lawyers, right, Jackie, and we know the law and how that operates. But there's so many other factors outside of the law that really can help a family.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Another important point is that there has been, at least in the US and here in New York, we're having some movement toward what's known as the streamlined model. And the idea behind streamlined is basically to make it more affordable and more accessible to all. So, one of the biggest concerns that come up in a consultation is that the prospective clients will say to me, well, this all sounds fantastic, and I would love to be able to do this, but what is this going to cost me? And there's always concern about that. And it is expensive. There is no way to have a quality, comprehensive divorce without spending a fair amount of money. But what I will say to people with great confidence is that it is money well spent, because there is no waste in this process. There is only focus on the details of your case and a team of people working to craft an agreement that is tailor-made to your family and very specific and very well thought out. And as you go along in the process, you also have all of the support of this team. And so it is just the most comprehensive, most well thought out way of doing things. I also say to people too, we try to be very cost conscious and be very cost effective. If we are going to be having a meeting about, parenting time and custody issues and issues pertaining to the kids, perhaps we don't have to have the financial neutral join us for that meeting. And that may be a cost-effective move that we can make. Or the parties can meet with, say, the financial neutral to help gather all of the information. And then I love nothing more than when a financial neutral organizes it all and puts it in a report that is just so easy for me to understand and to work with. And that certainly saves the parties a lot of time also, time and money. In this streamlined model, the idea is that you would set forth ahead of time a schedule of the meetings that you would have, and perhaps have a set flat fee for each of those meetings, so that the parties can kind of know at the outset, how long is this going to take? How much is this going to cost? And they're going to understand that if they can't get to a settlement on those issues that were set out for that day's meeting, that perhaps it will cost them more, for some continued work. And so there is this movement toward, trying to make it accessible and affordable to all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Woody Mostyn, one of the really trailblazers of the collaborative movement, he calls it unbundled services. I think that's a trend within South Florida as well, to maybe sometimes piecemeal things, on a limited scope representation basis, but still keeping it outside of court.
Right. It's fantastic. Great option.
Mhm.
We also just wanted to mention, this is something that I hope that your wheels are turning and that perhaps you're thinking about how you might be able to incorporate this into your own practice. This is an interdisciplinary model. And so it really involves, not just attorneys, but also financial professionals and mental health professionals. And so there's a lot of room on a team for, many of us to be actively involved in one case. Also the fact that there are two attorneys, this is something where we can be very collaborative and very generous with the other attorneys that are in our networks to bring them onto cases. And, there's certainly plenty of work for all. And I know for those of us who are, actively engaged in this type of practice, we are really on a mission to try to educate others about this process. And it's not just the prospective clients, but it is the other professionals who are doing work in the divorce space. And it is, in New York, I'm working with some of my colleagues, a few that I see on this call, through the NYACP, the New York collaborative group, to reach out to some of the local schools. Because, we just brought on a fantastic new associate here in my office, and she is completely unfamiliar with the collaborative process after having, just graduated law school and been on course and on path to be a family law attorney. How is that possible? So, we could be doing a much, much better job to get the word out there. That's why, Kristen and I are so appreciative of this opportunity today. But these are just some of the groups that we are involved in. And as I said, it is international. And so that's the IACP. My collaborativeteam.com is also a great organization that does actually on Friday nights Zoom calls that are really open to anyone, any collaborative professionals. Kristen, I don't know if you've ever been on any of those calls.
Yes.
But
Yes.
if you're interested in learning more, it doesn't matter, what state it is that you're practicing in, you could definitely learn more. And then some of Kristen's Florida groups that she's involved in, and some of my New York and Long Island groups. Kristen, do you have anything to add on that point of these professional networks?
Seems like a lot of people here are probably trained, but in case if there is someone on that is not trained, we have in South Florida at least some upcoming trainings. There's some online. The Florida Academy of Collaborative Professionals has upcoming trainings on their events page. So, I would encourage anyone to go there. It's collaborativepracticeflorida.com. There's some online trainings in August. And then the Broward group that I'm part of, the Collaborative Family Law Professionals of South Florida, they are having a training in person at the Broward County Bar Association, November 1st through the 3rd. And so for more information on that, you could go to collaborativefamilylawfl.com. So there are many trainings throughout the year.
That's fantastic. And we would encourage you all to get trained, because this is a very different way of practicing. And it's very valuable to have that training. And, I'm finding more often that a lot of people, especially in this post-pandemic landscape that we find ourselves in, are, throwing onto their website that they're mediators, that they're collaborative professionals, and not all properly trained. And that certainly comes through. I did a consultation with a wife who was 100% on board for collaborative. And so then to bring the husband on board, I reached out to him with a letter that sort of explained the process and how he can go about finding his own collaborative attorney. And I received a response to that from an attorney in New York City who said that he would be open to representing him in the collaborative process. And when I did a call with that other attorney, he thought that I just meant that we would do this amicably and in a friendly way. And he had no idea about the collaborative team of professionals, no idea about a participation agreement. And he was certainly well-intentioned and hopeful to be able to resolve this outside of court. And I appreciated that. But he didn't know what he was talking about. And husband did engage him, and we've been doing the best that we can, but it hasn't been as smooth or as comprehensive as I think it would have been if this attorney, were formally trained and experienced in this type of work.
Mhm.
So I think it's very important to try to build a team that, knows what they're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And shout out to NADP because that's part of the reasons why I got trained for collaborative, to be honest with you. Being part of the National Association of Divorce Professionals, the West Broward chapter is, after joining that, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to learn more about the collaborative process. And that's exactly what happened. So thank you so much, Liz, for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you. It's funny because I just pulled out a book to share a little story about this. So when I was coaching and I was doing communication skills coaching, I wasn't a divorce coach, but I was specializing in divorcing families and how to communicate more effectively. And this must be, more than 10 years ago, that I had no idea what collaborative law was. I wasn't involved in the actual process, just in their communication. And I met Carolyn Mazza. And I met her at an event and she was amazing. And she started talking about collaborative. I said, oh, how interesting. I did not know. And she mailed me, like, next week I get in the mail this book that I still have. And this was my introduction to the collaborative process. And that is actually when all of this sort of come together slowly. When I was learning about these different things, I said, wow, this is just like you just said, Jackie, it is amazing how many people, listen, I can understand people that do other things like realtors, brokers, if it's not presented to us and we don't put ourselves in these circles, we would not know. But even attorneys, even paralegals, law clerks, all of those. That's why also when I teach the CDS, the Certified Divorce Specialist training, I make sure that that's a big part of it, right? Knowing all of these different processes. So for everybody on the call today, this presentation was fantastic. Gives you a really good understanding, holistic understanding of the process. There's still, tremendous more that you can learn. So I urge you to reach out. And if you are connected with other people online, you can connect online to other collaborative attorneys through the NADP and also in your communities. Like they recommended, there's different chapters, local chapters that you can attend events and find out more. It's wealth is wisdom, information is wisdom, and wisdom is the way that you're able to better help your clients, right? I know that there were some questions. I don't know if you want to go ahead and or statements, if you want to open up the chat and address those.
Sure. I'm going to stop the share. I'm going to stop share so I can see those comments.
And with the last, I think Stephen Samuels mentioned something, and Jim Lisi has a question. Do you want me to read them? I'll just
if you could, because I'm just seeing a lot of
No
people's
problem.
contact information.
So sure. Okay. So Stephen from Florida. Hi, Stephen.
Hi.
Is a forensic accountant. Good to see you. It's generally always preferable to use a financial neutral CPA on collaborative or litigation family law matters. So yes. Once again, find those that are trained in collaborative law will have a better understanding of the process to be that financial neutral. And get both parties sort of on board. Jim Lisi. Hi, Jim. So often one spouse has more cash resources than the other. Does collaborative do anything to reduce the power differential? Great question.
Well, I think, I'm sorry, Kristen, go ahead. Go ahead.
No. Okay. So I would say that is probably one of the most empowering things that I have experienced in my collaborative cases, because more often than not, you have one spouse that is more knowledgeable about the finances, and the spouse that was not may feel like they have no voice in the process. So part of what we do as a team is ensure that everybody's on the same page in getting that spouse that may not know as much about the finances on the same level of knowledge. And, I've seen where it's a like 180 turnaround, even where they start to know and, do things that they had never done during the marriage.
And I
Yeah.
think also having that financial neutral is going to make that difference, right? Than if you're, tending to use the same person that's been handling with one of the spouses, the, financial aspects, the other spouse has no idea what it is, then that power differential really plays into effect when things need to be presented, when financial affidavits, when all of this stuff happens, that person that was not responsible for it now feels weaker, doesn't know what's going on. The relationship has been established with the other spouse and this financial professional, causes a lot of, not a fair playing field in many ways. So I think that's, like Stephen mentioned, the financial neutral coming in will sort of even out that differential, right?
Right. They can help explain things to
Right.
the less financially savvy party, explain to them this, what it is that they have, explain to them and help them with their budget moving forward. Because, so often people are just petrified if they aren't financially savvy. And then also speaking about the power imbalance, this is one of the nice aspects of collaborative. A lot of times my mediation cases, one of the parties may be intimidated to speak up, intimidated to say how he or she is really feeling, to ask questions, to advocate for themselves. And so it's nice to have an attorney there to be able to speak for you if you feel that you cannot speak for yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Jay has his hand up. So Jay, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
It's not a question so much. I just wanted to add that as a collaborative law professional in the financial field, financial questions always come up. And there's always clarity needed and understanding, because there's a great insecurity when the couples are making an agreement on how it's going to impact them later on. So there's always questions that come up. In the cases that I've worked, the collaborative cases that I've worked, sometimes I'm a fly on the wall and just there for a few questions, and sometimes I'm heavily involved. But I find that the couples always feel comfortable knowing that someone's there to answer the question that they have.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Stephen, go ahead. I see your hand up.
Hi there. Can you folks hear me?
Yep.
Oh, great. Wonderful meeting. Really appreciate this. A great group of professionals here. Just want to make one quick point on the financial neutral side. The individual that mentioned the disparity in financial understanding and financial worth is very, very important. And sometimes when you're working as a neutral, it gets a little complicated because you're dealing with psychology. You basically want to make sure that both parties feel like they're getting equal treatment, and you really are working as a neutral, which isn't always so easy. So for example, I have a case I'm working on now with two collaborative attorneys, and the husband is the breadwinner. The wife is very clueless about the financial aspect of what's happening. And so right from the get-go, getting lots of questions and emails flying back and forth, and the wife became upset because she wasn't copied on emails, and she felt like me as a neutral was leaning towards assisting the husband and not communicating with the wife. So we immediately changed the protocol. All emails everyone's copied on, and so you have to really, at least in my experience, go that extra mile to make sure that everyone feels like you are in fact a neutral, which isn't always so easy. And you're communicating equally, and you're really looking at getting to the finish line as quickly as possible, and not showing any preference to one party. And sometimes when you have a non-savvy financial spouse and a savvy one, one requires more attention and TLC and handholding than the other. So it can be challenging at times, but it's, like everyone said, it's really rewarding to get to the finish line, to know that they've avoided litigation and they're still friends. The husband and spouse are talking to each other, and nobody was financially mutilated during the process.
Right. Thank you. I have, before we get to, I see Jim and also, there was somebody else that had their hand up. I think Lisa.
Yeah.
Yes, there you go.
So I'm a coach and I have some clients at the very early stages that seem like it's going to be really contested. And I would love to be able to suggest collaborative approach. My client seems to feel like she needs a shark. So when you are in that situation, how do you guide, right? Like, I feel like I really need to be offering different options. And I really want to help the client walk down the path that, a shark may not be the right tool. I mean, you may be a shark in other situations. Don't, not knocking sharks, but you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I get that all the time. I get that all the time. And I think maybe I get it a lot because it's just not my nature to be, I'm not very shark-like. But I try to demonstrate for them and give them like real examples. And sometimes I tell them a story of a client that I had very early on in my career, and he could not get over the fact that his wife had cheated on him. He could not hear anything other than that. And it has absolutely no substantive relevance, as we all probably know on this call. And at the end of it, years of litigation that were just driven by his anger. He actually said to me, I wish I had listened to you 4 years ago when we first met. And you told me this is going to work out a certain way and none of this is going to matter. And he could see it then after he had spent so much money and so much time on the process, but he couldn't see it at the time. So I try to share stories like that with people and get them to understand the realities of going to court. And the fact that the collaborative can help them maintain some control over the speed of this process, over the cost of this process, over the outcome, and that the end product is something so much more useful to them than this one size fits all cookie cutter order that a court will dictate to you at the end of many years and, a lot of money. So I try to make them realize like the reality of it all. And that is sometimes very, very helpful because they all think they need a shark. They think that's what's good for them, but they don't know any better. And they're doing what, sometimes friends or family are, or what they've seen on TV and media, and they think that is right for them. They think they're protecting themselves in that way, but they're really not.
Right.
I think you said something so good right now that is important. And Lisa, this is what I would say, having been involved in the communications aspect of it, that most people that think they need a shark is because they have loss of control and they're trying to gain control and they think they need a shark to get that control. So the way that I would present it is, are you trying to look for control over this entire divorce, or wouldn't it be better for you to have control over the actual process of how you're going to get this divorce? They're two different things. And by wanting this, that you will have more control over the process by something like collaborative, rather than by going straight into this like shark litigation mode. You will have less control over that because then that's going to be up to the lawyers and the judges once it's filed. So that would be my 2 cents in that aspect of it.
Great.
Yeah. Jim, do you want to?
Yeah, quickly, I'm just circling back kind of on the power differential money wise, because I've seen, the business spouse, where I get mostly involved, freeze out the non-spouse, forcing them not to get a valuation, putting them at a disadvantage. How is collaborative funded? Is there a joint agreement that it gets funded? All these processes get funded equally, or is that part of the deal?
There is no one size fits all. I've seen all kinds of scenarios. Typically, each of the spouses pay for their own attorneys and then they split the cost of the neutrals. But if you have a situation where one spouse was, controlling the finances, that spouse may end up giving some type of support to the spouse that doesn't make as much, and they can do percentages. There's just all kinds of different ways and creative ways that we come up with the funding aspect of it.
Yeah, that's an interesting scenario and a good question. And I was going to address it too, because I thought that you meant not just the power differential within the process, but even to get to the process, right? Like how does that even come about if that person can't afford it? Like who would be the first person that's even reaching out to collaborative? And I'm thinking that if someone has the control and freezes out the other spouse, I don't know if they would really be on the mindset to do this as a collaborative process. Then whatever attorney that they're approaching would have to be the educated one and say, listen, this is not the best way to handle this. This would be a better way if your money matters to you and you don't want this to be, a public thing. I guess, in that aspect is the only way that I would see a scenario like that come to play. But in all honesty, that's why I don't think that you would experience that much of it, because I just don't think anybody that would freeze out the other partner would even consider doing a collaborative process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. That does make sense. It's just one of the many topics that we discuss,
Right.
the fees of all of this. How are we paying for this? And so even if someone maybe to engage their collaborative attorney for that retainer agreement is, using their separate money or taking it from a joint account or borrowing it from family. I mean, even when that's done, there are ways that we can account for that and give a credit back to somebody or, offset it with something else. And so it's just one of the topics that we delve into.
Yeah. Well, we're at 1:04 already, and we want to have enough time to be able to break you guys out so that you can actually meet each other. So I want to thank you both so much. You know how much I appreciate you. You guys are incredible in both states that we're very present in New York and in Florida. I look forward to seeing you guys in Toronto in October. And if you want to put your email addresses, and if you want to stay on and network also, I'm going to be sending everybody out into a breakout room with Nicole, where you can actually talk, chat, say your name. I always add something to the introduction every month, and usually it's theme based. So one of the things, and I hope that you guys are getting our newsletters, because we've been adding articles monthly based on certain themes with some valuable tips for you guys on there. And this month, because it was, in honor of Independence Day and July 4th, in celebration of that, I wrote an article just with tips on, how do you get your client? Because usually they come to you in divorce and they're so utterly dependent on you and all the other professionals involved. They're lost. So, how do you get your client to be a little bit more independent, to take agency a little bit and accountability on certain things that they have to do, which will make the process so much easier. So for today's meeting, I'd like you to add one thing to your introduction as far as what do you do? Is there something that you do to help your client throughout the process be a little bit more independent when you're working with them and take agency? So think of one thing to add to that. And I'm going to go ahead and send out the breakout. I'm just trying to think if there are any other announcements that we have. I know that Nicole gave them out. CDS, for those CDS that are on here, or anybody that is interested in this to become a certified divorce specialist. I do the training. It's an awesome course. I'd be happy to connect you with others that have gone through it, that give you that you start off with understanding communication skills and really how to communicate more effectively with your divorcing clients to overcome all the obstacles that most divorce professionals experience, like some of the topics that were brought up today. And I go through that with some NLP, neuro-linguistic programming tools that you can use. And then the second part of it is having a holistic understanding of the legal, financial, mental health, and real estate implications throughout the process, understanding the stages, understanding all of that. So it's a really good overall training for any of you that want to add as supplementary to whatever you do have already. So that's available online. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me about the CDS. And I know we have some guests on here. So if you stay on, I'll be staying in this room, and I would love to meet you. So I'm going to go ahead and break you guys out to this room. You'll see a little button to the right. Once you finish that breakout session, you can go ahead and just leave from there. You don't have to come back to the main room. And I appreciate you all. And I look forward to seeing you next month at our summer social. So come and join us. We'll have fun. Get to play some games.
Thanks,
Okay,
Liz.
everybody.
Thank you.